think expected the Jade Falcon Shrike to go for him first. His Wolfhound, painted in the standard black and red of the Kell Hounds, was the easier target. As the company commander, he had the right to take whatever mech he wanted, but he far preferred the nimble maneuverability of the lighter mechs. And besides, what did it say about the quality of his leadership if he insisted on walking around in the biggest, heaviest mech, ready to be the last one standing? I've always appreciated the Wolfhound. It's a quintessential Lyran battle mech that may have started out as a project just to spite the ubiquitous Cretan Panther, but in the years following its introduction, the plucky 35-ton battle mech has earned a reputation for reliability and durability. That's an accomplishment considering we're talking about light mechs that tend to have very short lifespans on the battlefields of the 31st and 32nd centuries, especially in the second half of the 31st century once pulse lasers arrived on the scene like a school bully fresh off a 2-week suspension. With no shortage of light-class battle mechs out there from the Jenner, Panther, and Valkyrie, it was a bit of a strange turn of events that led to the WLF-1 Wolfhound's development and production. After centuries of border skirmishes with the Draconis Combine, the Lyran Commonwealth was finally in a position to create a new battle mech that could challenge the venerable Panther as the heavy-hitting light mech. The previous Hatchetman project had been a huge success, and Archon Katrina Steiner wished to double down on it with a battle mech that was swift, reliable, and could operate for extended periods of time without seeking resupply. The designers at Thar Hess Industries were tasked with coming up with a prototype, and by early 3028 the mech granted the name Wolfhound was ready for field testing. In that same year, the humanoid mech was spotted among the ranks of select units of the Kell Hounds mercenary organization, which were putting it through its paces. Major Daniel Allard was one of the first to pilot the Wolfhound and quickly took a liking to it following the destruction of his Valkyrie in 3027. It served him well, and the reputation of the Wolfhound was enhanced as a result. Constructed around a GM210 fusion engine and Ark Royal KH3 internal structure, the Wolfhound was deliberately as purely a Lyran design as possible. With a top speed of 97 km per hour, the Wolfhound was able to outpace the Panther and just slightly trailed behind the Jenner. The decision not to add jump jets had to be a tough one, but ultimately that mass was to be spent on offensive power and armor. Speaking of which, that 7.5 tons of Duralex medium armor was a full ton more than the Panther 9Rs, and I hope you're enjoying the comparisons to the Panther because Thar Hess kept their eye on the prize, so shall we. Seeking to approach the offensive punch of the PPC, the Wolfhound was given a Setanta large laser in the right arm as a primary damage dealer. While it couldn't quite match the PPC's range or power, it was 2 tons lighter and produced slightly less heat, which the designers hoped they could use to their advantage. In addition to the large laser, 4 tried and true Defiance B3M medium lasers were added to the Wolfhound. 2 split between the left and right torsos, and 2 placed into the center torso, one of which was rear-facing. The combination of large laser and 3 forward-facing medium lasers was impressive, though the Achilles heel for the Wolfhound 1 was the 10 standard heatsinks, which made firing more than just the large laser while running a heat generator. However, if the Wolfhound's Mechwarrior was to find the perfect opportunity for an alpha strike on a target and did fire everything in that forward arc, it would be a potential 23 damage. At a run, it would leave the mech at 7+ into the red, which would slow the mech on the next turn, but still avoid that negative modifier to fire. One could fire just a medium laser while on the run that next turn and end up at just +2 into the red. The turn after that, the +2 could be maintained with a large laser shot while on a run each turn. The lesson here is that if you enjoy dancing on the heat curve, the Wolfhound can be quite interesting. With the OP COM22 H47 comlink and digital Scanlock 347 targeting and tracking system, the WLF-1 Wolfhound was almost ready to go. The last major component was the mech's full head ejection system, which, like the Hatchetman before it, could help better protect the Mechwarrior should he or she experience the rapid onset disassembly of their battle mech. This was the only significant portion of the Wolfhound that required the aid from outside of the Lyran Commonwealth. As previously mentioned, those earliest Wolfhound prototypes were sent to the Kell Hounds for extensive field testing. The mercenary unit was well established by the late 3020s as reliable and extremely capable. If the Wolfhound was to be a successful design, the Kell Hounds would be able to figure it out. Thankfully for all involved in the Wolfhound project, those early reports were favorable. Mechwarriors lauded the mech's speed and ability to operate without ammunition concerns. With initial success and early development, production of the Wolfhound was greenlit. The fourth succession war was the mech's crucible, and very quickly the Dragoons Combine saw an increased loss rate for their light mechs like the Panther and Jenner. The Wolfhound did so well that the other houses sought the technical data and salvage from fallen Wolfhounds to see what made the mech such an efficient hunter. With increased cooperation between the Lyran Commonwealth and the Federated Suns, Wolfhounds made their way into the ranks of the AFFS and affiliated mercenary units. This connection was further solidified through the establishment of the Federated Commonwealth and meshing of the militaries of the two great houses. The one house that wasn't interested in adding Wolfhounds to their ranks was the Dragoons Combine, which, in an uncharacteristic demonstration of pride, refused to field it. It was just a smidge of sarcasm there if you didn't pick up on that. Instead, what examples of the Wolfhound they were able to procure were sent back to be reverse engineered for any secrets they might contain. In a series of events similar to that of the Cold War during the 20th century, information from the Wolfhound was incorporated into the Combine's next step battlemech, the Wolf Trap, which debuted in 3051. But that's a story for a future video. Pulling the triggers and pushing the firing studs, he let loose with every laser his Wolfhound had, slashing 2 different colors of light in a brilliant lance across the snowy battlefield. The lasers cut across the legs, melting the rest of the armor plating and tearing into the myarmor muscles. The Shrike's knee actuators popped like corn, caving the mech's legs in on each other. By the 3040s, the Wolfhound was a staple of the Federated Commonwealth and their military allies. This of course included the Kell Hounds, which placed the Wolfhound and its mech-warrior felon Kell into the crux of history in 3049. When he was captured by Clan Wolf in the earliest days of the clan invasion, felon Kell started a journey which would take him up through the ranks of Clan Wolf warrior caste to eventually become Sakon and later Khan of the Wolves in Exile. While Phelan's story is one many BattleTech fans know well, I think his Wolfhound's journey is of note. This was a mech that the clans had not yet seen, and they were impressed, well, as much as any clanner can be impressed by anything coming out of the Inner Sphere. Phelan would eventually be reunited with his battle mech named Grinner, though it received some significant upgrades by 3051. Since it's a one-of refit, the Wolfhound 2C didn't get its own video back in the day, so we're going to take a few minutes here and give it some love. Still 35 tons and maintaining the 690 movement profile, the Wolfhound 2C received the significant upgrade to Clan Endosteel, a Clan XL engine, and 6.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor. This bought a lot of mass for the 14 double heat sinks and improved equipment. The original large laser was swapped out for a Clan ER large laser, which significantly improved the mech's ability to hit long range and for more damage per shot. 3 Clan medium pulse lasers replaced the forward-facing mediums of old, and that cherished center torso rear spot was given a Clan ER medium laser. Finally, an ECM suite was added to the head, making this our first official Operation Sneaky Sneak Wolfhound in the timeline. Phelan drifted his mech to the left, letting the pair of PPCs and pulse lasers shoot through the space where he had been standing. Dropping his crosshairs onto the Diashi's left shoulder, he fired all his weapons. His large laser melted the thick myarmor muscles that had once given the stricken mech's left arm movement. The trio of pulse lasers mounted in the Wolfhound's chest stabbed a cloud of ruby laser needles into the joint itself, changing the ferro-titanium bones from a dull silver to a brilliant white before they evaporated. The arm dropped away, bouncing off the mech's left thigh before landing in the snow. In a completely shocking turn of events, the earliest official variant of the Wolfhound didn't change much except for the removal of that rear-facing medium laser. That ton of mass was then devoted to an 11th heatsink, which slightly improved the heat profile for the mech. It's a logical move for a battle mech that is rarely going to be dying from being shot in the back anyway. The 1A is a solid pick. The other quick refit, the Wolfhound 1B, decided to bring the pain by turning that 4th medium laser around to be front-facing. While this did compound the mech's heat issues, it did boost the possible alpha strike on a poor defenseless Panther target by an additional 5 points of damage. It's a plus 10 into the red at standstill and plus 12 on the run, so 1B mech warriors would still need to pick their opportunities well. especially on a busy battlefield where losing 2 movement points can be painful. If you're bold, brave, and wish to throw caution to the proverbial winds, the 1B might be a solid pick for a pre-helm core Wolfhound. Phelan let the Sentinel have it with all his forward weapons. The medium pulse laser at Grinner's right shoulder burned away armor on the Sentinel's left arm. The pulse laser mounted in the opposite shoulder slashed at the right arm, while the center pulse laser shot low and melted Rampart into glass without hitting the Sentinel. The Wolfhound's large laser capitalized on the damage done to the Sentinel's left arm and autocannon. Under the coherent light's hellish caress, the last of the armor vaporized, and the autocannon flashed to a molten white heat before it melted clean away. The mech, unbalanced by the loss of the limb, staggered but managed to stay upright. Leaping ahead to the post-clan invasion, by 3050 it was obvious that the Wolfhound was in dire need of an upgrade. Light mechs were increasingly in trouble in the post-Helm Core universe, and now the arrival of the clans with mechs that were faster, stronger, and hit harder only complicated the Mechwarrior's long-term goals, such as breathing and not having to eat through a straw. In 3052, the WLF2 Wolfhound was introduced, which incorporated the much-needed double heat sinks to the design. Now unburdened from the heat woes with the ability to sink 20 heat per turn, the logical next step, as is so often the case for these Helm memory core upgrades, was to slap an large laser onto it. In the case of the Wolfhound 2, it's not that egregious, and adding the range to the primary weapon really does help a bit with the mech's ability to survive a battle. The 4 medium lasers were all left alone, thankfully, so a full forward-facing Alpha Strike left the mech at just +3 heat into the red. That's not bad at all, and it's easy to step back down the next turn by holding off on 2 of the medium lasers. Overall, the WLF2 Wolfhound is a logical upgrade that didn't go too far with an XL engine or something silly like that. I'd have perhaps liked to see the shift to ferrofibrous armor to improve its defense a bit, but we could take what we get and not throw a fit, right? Stepping back a bit, the fondness for the Wolfhound among the Kell Hounds extended well beyond its initial testing in the 3030s. This included Daniel Allard, who embraced the mech and made it his own well into the 3050s. Through the connections between the Kell Hounds and Felon Kell's Wolves in Exile, Allard's Wolfhound was the beneficiary of a very dangerous upgrade. In what is known as the Allard Wolfhound, the WLF-1 received 12 Clan Tech double heat sinks as well as a Clan XL engine. This bought mass and allowed for the installation of a Clan ER PPC, 3 Clan ER medium lasers, a rear-facing Clan ER small laser, and finally a targeting computer to aim with all of them. The more accurate Clan ER PPC on a mech that can run and gun without overheating is scary, but adding in just 2 of the ER medium lasers into the mix only results in +1 heat into the red. The 3rd ER medium laser made it a +6, all still quite manageable. The Allard Wolfhound is an expensive yet powerful upgrade to the platform, and it's no wonder that it was considered a deadly foe on any battlefield. But before Alex could finish the job, more laser bolts slammed into the archer from the rear. Others narrowly missed his mech and burned away bits of the stricken assassin instead, so closely were the 2 mechs engaged. Alex pivoted hard, pushing away from the fallen assassin. The Wolfhound was 50 meters away, a large Cyclops 12 laser in its right arm, loosing a dazzling beam that slashed across the archer's chest. Alex's heat levels, already high after his long run to meet the rebel vanguard, soared at the new raw caress of the laser. Ignoring the warning discreet flashing across his instrumentation, he triggered his last 12 missiles, hurling them in close, packed swarm straight into the Wolfhound's center of mass. Now, if you weren't lucky enough to be the leader of a prestigious mercenary unit with ties to the Lyrans and the Wolves in Exile, you might have to settle for our next Wolfhound upgrade, known as the 3S. It was first spotted in 3064 and reflected a considerable rethinking of the platform. This included the use of endosteel and the installation of a new light fusion engine. The movement profile stayed the same as with previous incarnations, but the saved mass was devoted to 12 double heat sinks and upgraded weaponry. The first and most notable change was the swap to an ER PPC, saying goodbye to the warm but lackluster ER large laser. The traditional 3 forward-facing medium lasers were upgraded to the ER variety, And finally, an ER small laser was added to the center torso facing that rear firing arc. If you're a fan of the ER PPC over the ER large laser, the 3S is a solid choice. Otherwise, it's not that much different than the Wolfhound 2. Leaping down to the end of the decade, in 3069 the WLF-4W debuted, which veered a little further from its roots than the previous designs. It retained the endosteel from previous upgrades and kept the standard engine. Instead of a single large primary weapon, the 4W was armed with an ER medium laser and ER small laser in the right arm. In the body, spread across the torsos, were 3 light PPCs. For the uninitiated, think of light PPCs as extended range medium lasers that do 5 damage out to 18 hexes at 5 heat generated. It's not a terrible loadout, but the 3 hex minimum range on the PPCs could be more bothersome for a light mech than say a medium or heavy, depending upon how the Mechwarrior prefers to play. The 10 double heat sinks are adequate, though as with previous variants, some heat management skills would be helpful. There are a few other quirky variants of the Wolfhound in the 3060s and 70s, so definitely check them out if you're interested, but in the interest of full disclosure, I think they're pretty forgettable. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and forget them, and we'll move on to the WLF-5 Wolfhound, which debuted among the forces of the Kell Hounds in 3079. The Wolfhound 5 sticks to tradition with the full energy loadout, but does so with some significant upgrades. The first was the swap to a GM245 XL fusion engine, which pushed the mech's top speed up to 118 km per hour. If that's not fast enough for you little speed demons, there's also a mask system installed, which could boost the top speed up to 151 km per hour. Happy now? There's still no jump jets to be seen, but the designers did drop a half ton of armor from the mech, so it's all even, right? That's how it works? No? Okay. Anyway, the 711 and possibly up to 14 movement profile was intended to extend the mech's lifespan through speed. You don't need armor if you're just going really fast, right? For primary weapon, the brand new appropriately named Hounds Tooth snub-nosed PPC was installed into the right arm. Backing it up were 2 light PPCs split between the side torsos. While the total damage possible for the Alpha Strike doesn't look that great on paper, just 20 damage, the speed of the Wolfhound 5 is its primary selling point. The 10 double heat sinks are more than adequate to keep it running and gunning, and that accurate snub-nosed PPC will mean consistent 10-point damage hits as the mech speeds around the battlefield. But he was badly outmatched in weaponry now. The Hawk outmassed the Wolfhound by 20 tons, but the WLF-2 mounted 3 Defiance B3M medium lasers in its chest, and the Cyclops 12 large laser in its arm alone outmatched Clay's single operating weapon. With the Vindicator down, Alex pivoted toward the Wolfhound, his targeting crosshairs centering on the machine's back where its armor was weakest. As he triggered a barrage, the WLF's rear-mounted Defiance laser opened up in reply, striking the Archer's right arm. The next to last official variant we're going to be covering today is the unique product of the chaos generated by the Blakist kerfuffle years. The 2H prototype was built on Ark Royal and incorporated a litany of technological upgrades to maximize its performance. This included a GM210 XL engine, endosteel, and a supercharger placed into the left torso, which pushed the top speed of the mech to reach 129 km per hour. The 7.5 tons of standard plate was left untouched from earlier versions, though it did receive a facelift. The most notable change in the look of the mech was the Vulpine head assembly, which really leaned into the Wolf aesthetic. With all the expense of getting this new Wolfhound up to speed, the payoff for the Ark Royal designers was the heavy PPC they were able to cram into the mech's right arm, along with a PPC capacitor. That's 15 damage without the charge capacitor and 20 with it, which gave the Wolfhound 2H the equivalent of an AC-20 shot out to 18 hexes. To add insult to injury, it could fire that heavy PPC consistently on the run thanks to the 11 double heat sinks. Backing up the heavy PPC were a pair of ER medium lasers split between the left and right torsos, and finally, thankfully, an emotional support ER small laser was installed into the center torso. The downsides from all the advanced upgrades, especially the AES system, included a high price tag and the cost of maintenance that made it unlikely in the short term for the 2H to be adopted widely. Still, some 2Hs did see deployment along the Lyran Guards, Sky Rangers, Crescent Hawks, and even the Wolves in Exile. Remaining niche, the Wolfhound 2H proved to be a product in high demand for the Ark Royal Mechworks. Our last official variant today is the Wolfhound 6S, and it is the most recently produced reimagining for this battle mech. It was designed around an upgraded XL engine which pushed the top speed to 97 km per hour and benefited from both endosteel and light ferrofibrous armor. The 6S's primary weapon was clearly the large re-engineered laser in the right arm, which is aided by an actuator enhancement system to improve its accuracy. It could hit out to 15 hexes for 9 damage. While that's not too intimidating, it is accurate with a -2 to hit thanks to the AES. Backing it up in the torsos, 3 ER medium lasers were installed, 1 per side torso and 1 in the center torso. Finally, in a nice homage to the original, the small X-pulse laser was placed into the center torso, facing that rear firing arc. The 6S's 11 double heat sinks do an adequate job of keeping the mech cool, though some heat management would be necessary in the thick of it. The XL engine irks me personally, but it is nice to see the 711 movement profile for the plucky Wolfhound. Smoke was curling from seams and openings as sparks jittered and flashed in the shadowy wire-packed recesses revealed by the blown panels. Abruptly, a curved sheath of armor slid back on the machine's sloping head. There was a flash, and then the Wolfhound's pilot was rocketing clear of the open cockpit, his seat trailing a column of yellow-white flame. The WLF-2 balanced there for a moment, then, as the pilot's chute opened, another internal explosion pitched it to the ground with a ragged crash. Taking a crack at my own totally unofficial and non-canon and, well, probably a war crime variant of the Wolfhound, I didn't change much structurally other than the installation of a light fusion engine and upgrading the armor to 6.5 tons of light ferrofibrous. Okay, maybe I changed a bit. The 690 movement was retained and the 10 double heatsinks are no surprise. The Wolfhound MF is primarily a snub-nosed PPC delivery system which is aided by an actuator enhancement system which improves the weapon's accuracy. It is joined by an ER medium laser in the right arm, and those are definitely the mech's primary weapons. At extremely short range, 8 machine guns in the left torso provide protection against infantry, battle armor, and any suspicious defenseless villages. The MGs are fed by half ton of ammunition protected by Case 2. Technically, it's a damage potential of up to 31, though that is within 3 hexes. More frequently, the snub-nosed PPC and the ER medium laser are going to be doing most of the work. I think the accuracy of the weapons counts for a lot, and anyone who lets the Wolfhound 1MF get up behind their mech is in for a world of pain. If you want to give it a go, I've uploaded the record sheet for it to a Dropbox link and shared it in the video notes below. Let me know how it performs. So why do we love the Wolfhound? Personally, I'm fond of it as a good representation of the inner sphere mechs that were produced during the late Succession Wars. Favorites like the Cataphract, Raven, and Haramoto Chi are good reminders of humanity's incessant desire to find new and creative ways to kill. The mech's fluff, built around the Lyran desire to kill off those annoying Combine Panthers, is endlessly amusing, and I love it when the lore makes those connections rather than just creating the impression that decisions to build new mechs happened in a vacuum. The Wolfhound is swift, hits decently hard for a 35-tonner, and doesn't have to worry about ammunition. While the lack of jump jets is definitely a complicating factor for my relationship with it, the mech is a solid choice for a Scout Lance. What do you think? Is the Wolfhound a buy, or are you a Jenner fan tried or true? Are you running a Panther in your Lance instead? Let me know in the comments below and we'll keep the conversation going. Thank you as always for coming by as we talked some BattleTech. If you enjoyed the video and feel it was worthy, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, and even hitting subscribe will make it much more likely you'll see my nonsense in the future. For those who have taken that extra step of becoming channel members or supported on Ko-fi, thank you very much. Without you, none of this would be possible. Until we meet again, please take care of yourself and your loved ones by making the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.